Hey squad, this is a video response to Reward Audacity about his last video regarding God. I'd originally stated that I would wait for Shave to post his video. That way nothing I would offer would walk on top of his and then perhaps follow his up with a yes and, or if everything was covered sufficiently, and then, just be good. That way we kind of get the most out of our responses. But that's thinking a little highly of myself. So instead, I decided to go ahead and think highly of myself and assume that I will offer you a perspective that I don't feel Shave will. Because I feel that while he and I have very similar personalities, I consider him to be a friend. I feel like we gel pretty good. We also have different backgrounds. He's on the arts sort of side. He's more of a city kid. I grew up in the Boy Scouts from the age of 10 years old, camping every month, and then every summer going to a long summer camp where, no electricity, no nothing. High school was in ROTC, taking sort of the pre-military path up through there. Some of my friends went on to some very amazing things from that same upbringing. So while I won't say that we're cut from the same cloth, I was definitely drinking the same Kool-Aid that these people drank, so to speak. So I also think that there's some parts of history that, as a result of my upbringing, gave me a certain perspective. So the question is, what church did Colonel Quantrill go to where he was well qualified to say, we will fight and bring vengeance the way that Jesus fought wickedness, or eradicated wickedness upon the earth? I paraphrase to one degree or another. I will make a long story short if you have to end the video here. If you want to be part of that religion, from my estimation, the closest thing to it, you're looking at joining ISIS. No offense to the Raiders, no offense to the Confederate States military, but hear me out. They take a book, a holy tome, and branch off from it, and instead of portions of it that need to be taken literal, that have to be put in context, a particular leader cherry picks certain sections. So take the Christian Bible just as an example, going back from the Muslim Quran back to the Christian Bible. There are passages in the Old Testament where it talks about how the Hebrews were instructed to go into a city and kill every man, woman, and child, dashing the babies against the rocks or something along those lines. So a militaristic leader may use that portion of the text and use it to spur his people on. Like, you sort of stimulate the God section of a person's brain. Because studies, I saw a seminar one time that talked about how scientists have determined there's actually a special little pocket in your brain that's stimulated when you're doing things religious. But let's just say these leaders find a way to stimulate that little pocket in your gray matter, okay? They use that. They influence others that are, say, perhaps raised Christian. The catechism that people go through while being religious, up from a child, provides a framework that they're able to plug in this software. So consider it like a computer. You got your computer hardware and then the software. So the catechism establishes the hardware of how your logic plays out, and then you have a particular leader that begins to install the software, and you proceed accordingly. Witness for you, Radical Ryan. His sect of white power, white nationalism, takes a religious path, to the point of believing and preaching that the white race was a particular tribe of Israel, like actually bringing back to source, not grafting the vine, not Christ accepting us, not Christ adopting us. It's a different pathway. So it is maybe with Quantrill. And but with few exceptions, I don't know how many Christian organizations exist that still follow that same path. But if you do want the modern equivalent, you're going to be leaning more towards the Muslim faith would be a better fit for you. And because there's, in my estimation, many more pockets of that extremism. There's many more pockets of that interpretation of God's will upon the earth. There are some who believe that it is mankind's role to fulfill wrath upon the earth, and they allow themselves to become a beast of sorts. And the Bible talks about this. And then philosophers later on were able to explain it in that when a man makes a beast of himself, he gets rid of the pain of being a man. So you absolve yourself of that personal morality, that personal responsibility. Now, I think universally, and this is sort of my intention when I bring up the Muslim aspect, you take a Quran, and some interpret it as a peaceful tome, and then others interpret it as a war chest, so to speak. These groups, let's go back to Genghis Khan, aka Genghis Khan. As he was conquering the known world, history states that he did acknowledge an almighty force, a God force. But when he would go to a city, the people that he sent, his envoys, would present themselves as actually being God's wrath. And I once again paraphrase, but they would say something to the tune of, I don't know what you did that angered your God so much that your God no longer offered your protection. But here it is. Here is God's wrath. Perhaps a little later on, maybe a little bit before, when the Norman invasion occurred on England, and the Vikings, for lack of a better term, when they came over, and there were Christian churches practicing a faith that we would more closely identify with Catholicism. They weren't guarded by troops or anything else. We can agree that the Norse were a holy and deity-believing people, but as they sacked these churches, legend holds that they would say to the preachers, like, how weak is your God compared to ours, that he isn't stopping us from doing this thing. You know what I mean? So my point in all of this is it's a matter of perspective towards providence. But in conclusion, and in my opinion, and in my understanding and study, it is far from what the practice of Christianity's intention is. Comments welcome. Video responses welcome. We'll catch y'all later.